For several seconds, I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. The woman stood at the top of the lighthouse stairs, looking directly at me, smiling, crying, watching. Exactly the way Sarah used to. My legs felt weak. The flashlight slipped from my hand, clattering against the steps. Ava. Her voice broke. The same voice. The same voice I'd heard my entire life. The same voice I'd spent 3 years desperately hoping to hear again. No. Tears filled my eyes. No. The woman started down the stairs slowly. One step. Then another. Then another. I couldn't stop staring. Every detail matched. Everything. The tiny scar above her eyebrow. The way she tilted her head when she was nervous. The slight limp from an old soccer injury. It was all there. Every single thing. Then she reached me. Close enough to touch. Close enough to prove she was real. My hands trembled. Sarah? The woman smiled through tears. Then nodded. And just like that, I broke. 3 years of grief. 3 years of pain. 3 years of searching. Collapse all at once. I threw my arms around her. And for a moment, everything else disappeared. The trafficking network. The ledger. Nathan. The detective. The danger. None of it mattered. Because my sister was alive. Or at least, I thought she was. Then I noticed something strange. Sarah wasn't hugging me back. Not really. Her arms barely moved. Her body felt stiff. Rigid. Almost uncomfortable. Slowly, I pulled away. The smile on her face remained. But something felt wrong. Very wrong. My stomach tightened. Sarah? The woman hesitated. Only for a second. But I noticed. Nathan noticed too. So did Hale. The detective's expression darkened immediately. The woman looked toward him. Then toward Nathan. Then back at me. The smile disappeared. And suddenly, the resemblance wasn't enough anymore. Because now I could see it. The tiny differences. The things grief had hidden from me. The things hope had hidden from me. This wasn't Sarah. Not completely. Not exactly. My heart began pounding. What is your name? The woman froze. The question caught her off guard. For several seconds she said nothing. Then quietly answered. Rebecca. The world stopped. What? My name is Rebecca. The room fell silent. I stepped backward. Confused. Terrified. Angry. What are you talking about? Tears filled her eyes. Please. No. My voice cracked. Who are you? Rebecca looked devastated. As though she'd been expecting this moment. As though she'd feared it. Then she reached into her jacket. Nathan immediately moved. Hand on his weapon. Rebecca froze. I'm not armed. Slowly, she pulled out a photograph. Old. Worn. Damaged. Then she handed it to me. The moment I looked at it, my blood ran cold. Because the woman in the photograph was Rebecca. Years younger. Standing beside Sarah. Both smiling. Both alive. Both together. I looked up. Completely stunned. What is this? Rebecca swallowed hard. Then answered. I was with your sister the night she disappeared. The lighthouse fell silent. The ocean crashed below us. The wind screamed outside. But inside, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Because for the first time, we were hearing from someone who had actually been there. Someone who knew what happened. Someone who had survived. My hand shook. What happened? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Then she whispered. We found the ledger. Every nerve in my body tightened. The ledger. The thing everyone had been hunting. The thing Sarah died for. Or supposedly died for. Nathan stepped forward. What happened after that? Rebecca looked away. Ashamed. Broken. Haunted. Then she answered. We ran. The room remained silent. We knew they were coming. I stared at her. Who? Rebecca closed her eyes. The people in the ledger. A chill ran through me. Because suddenly this wasn't a faceless organization anymore. These were real people. Powerful people. Dangerous people. People with names. People with influence. People with money. Rebecca continued. Sarah wanted to expose them. That sounded exactly like my sister. Exactly. Nathan nodded. As expected. Rebecca looked at him. Then slowly said. She trusted you. Nathan froze. Completely froze. The words hit him harder than anyone else. Rebecca saw it. So did I. Then she reached into her pocket. and removed a small key. Bronze. Old. Weathered. The kind of key that opens something important. Something hidden. Something valuable. My pulse quickened. What is that? Rebecca looked directly at me, then spoke the words we'd spent the entire story chasing. The key to Sarah's hiding place. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even blinked. The key. The ledger. The truth. Everything. Finally. After 3 years. Then Rebecca added, "There's something else." A terrible feeling settled in my stomach. What? Rebecca looked at Nathan. Then at Hale. Then at me. And suddenly she seemed frightened. More frightened than she'd been the entire conversation. Then she whispered, "They know we're here." The room froze. Nathan's expression changed instantly. So did Hale's. Then, a bright light exploded through the lighthouse window. Everyone turned. Headlights. Multiple headlights. Approaching from the road below. One vehicle. Then another. Then another. Then another. My heart stopped. Because there weren't 2 vehicles. Or 3. There were at least 10. And they were all coming toward the lighthouse. Fast. Very fast. Nathan looked out the window. Then whispered one sentence. A sentence that told me just how bad the situation really was. "We're out of time." For several seconds, nobody moved. The headlights continued climbing the road. One vehicle. Then another. Then another. The beams cut through the darkness like knives. Nathan's expression hardened instantly. The relaxed man I'd spoken to moments earlier disappeared. In his place stood someone else. Someone trained. Someone dangerous. Someone who had been preparing for this exact moment. How many? Hale was already counting. 9. Pause. 12. Another pause. Maybe more. My stomach dropped. 12 vehicles. Before we go any further, we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and let us know where you are watching from. We would love to hear from you, and while you're at it, could you do us a favor and hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos? Nobody brings 12 vehicles unless they're expecting a fight. Rebecca looked terrified. Genuinely terrified. Then she whispered, "They found the clue." Nathan turned toward her. "What clue?" "The lighthouse." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" Rebecca swallowed. Then looked at me. Ashamed. Almost guilty. Then she said, "I left part of Sarah's message behind." The room fell silent. Nathan stared at her. "What?" Rebecca looked miserable. "I thought I removed everything." Nathan's jaw tightened. "You thought?" "I was 17. Her voice cracked. I was scared. Nobody spoke. Then Hale muttered, "Great." The situation somehow became even worse. The organization wasn't here because they tracked us. They were here because they finally solved one of Sarah's clues. 3 years later. And unfortunately, we solved it at exactly the same time. The headlights stopped moving. They had arrived. Every vehicle parked around the base of the cliff. My pulse quickened. Then doors began opening. One after another. One after another. One after another. The sound echoed through the night. Nathan immediately moved away from the window. Down. Nobody argued. The 4 of us crouched behind the stone wall. Then I looked at Rebecca. The key remained clenched in her hand. The key. The reason we came. The reason Sarah died. Or supposedly died. A thought suddenly struck me. Hard. Fast. Relentless. I looked directly at Rebecca. "Why did Sarah trust you?" The question caught everyone off guard, including Rebecca. For several seconds, she didn't answer. Then finally she whispered, "Because I saved her." The room fell silent. My pulse quickened. "What?" Rebecca looked toward the ocean. Toward the darkness. Toward the past. Then she began speaking. "The night everything happened. Nobody interrupted. The night we found the ledger." Her eyes filled with tears. Sarah knew they were coming. I immediately remembered the note. "If anyone finds this, I'm running out of time." Rebecca continued. We were at a motel. Nathan froze. The detective froze. The story had suddenly become very important. We thought we'd lost them. Rebecca laughed bitterly. We were wrong. The room remained silent. They found us. My heart pounded. What happened? Rebecca looked directly at me, then answered. Sarah made a decision. A terrible feeling settled in my stomach. The kind that arrives right before bad news. What decision? Rebecca swallowed hard, then said, "She used me." Silence. Complete silence. I stared at her, unable to speak, unable to move, unable to understand. Rebecca continued. The resemblance wasn't accidental. Nathan's eyes widened. The detective looked stunned. Even I couldn't breathe. Because suddenly, everything made sense. Rebecca looked exactly like Sarah because Sarah wanted her to. Not surgically. Not artificially. They simply happened to resemble each other. Enough. Close enough. Close enough to fool someone in a hurry. Close enough to confuse people. Close enough to save a life. Rebecca's voice trembled. When the men arrived, a tear rolled down her cheek. They chased me. The lighthouse fell silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Because we all knew what that meant. Sarah had sent Rebecca away. Sarah had made herself disappear. Sarah had sacrificed everything. Then Rebecca spoke the words that shattered every assumption we'd made. Every single one. For 10 parts. For 50 minutes. For 3 years. Rebecca looked directly at me. Then whispered. Sarah never wanted anyone to find her. The room froze. My heart stopped. Because that changed everything. Not kidnapped. Not missing. Not hiding from us. Hiding from everyone. Including me. Including Nathan. Including Hale. Including the people hunting her. And then, before anyone could speak, before anyone could react, before anyone could process what Rebecca had just revealed, a laser sight appeared on the wall. A tiny red dot. Moving. Searching. Looking. For a target. Nathan saw it first. His face lost all color. Then he shouted one word. Run. And a second later, the lighthouse exploded with gunfire. The first burst of gunfire shattered the lighthouse windows. Glass exploded everywhere. Instinctively, I dropped to the floor. Rebecca screamed. Hale immediately pulled her behind a stone pillar. Nathan grabbed my arm. Move. The lighthouse echoed with gunfire. Bullets slammed into the walls. The ancient structure groaned under the assault. For a terrifying moment, I thought the entire tower might collapse. Downstairs. Nathan shouted. Nobody argued. We sprinted toward the spiral staircase. Another volley of gunfire erupted behind us. Chunks of stone flew from the wall. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Halfway down the staircase, Hale suddenly stopped. What are you doing? Nathan barked. The detective looked back toward the top of the lighthouse. His face was pale. Very pale. Then he whispered. They're not after us. The words didn't make sense. What? Hale looked terrified. They're after the key. The key. Rebecca still held it. Tightly. Like her life depended on it. Maybe it did. We reached the bottom floor. Nathan immediately locked the heavy entrance door. Then shoved a metal cabinet against it. For a few seconds, silence returned. Only our breathing remained. Fast. Shallow. Panicked. Then, bang. Something slammed against the door. Once. Twice. 3 times. The attackers had reached the entrance. Nathan turned toward Rebecca. Give me the key. She hesitated. Then slowly handed it over. For the first time, I got a proper look at it. Bronze. Old. Covered in scratches. And engraved with a symbol. A symbol I recognized instantly. My stomach dropped. No. Nathan looked at me. What? I pointed. The symbol. I'd seen it before. Years ago. In Sarah's room. On one of her notebooks. The same strange symbol she'd spent weeks drawing. Over. And over. And over. At the time, I thought it was meaningless. A random doodle. But now, it was carved into the key. The same key everyone was willing to kill for. Nathan's expression changed instantly. You've seen this before? I nodded. Sarah drew it constantly. The room fell silent. Rebecca looked shocked. So did Hale. Nathan immediately crouched beside me. Are you sure? Yes. The certainty in my voice surprised even me. Nathan looked toward the detective. The detective looked toward Nathan. And suddenly both men had the same realization. The symbol wasn't random. It was a map. My pulse quickened. A map to what? Nathan answered. The ledger. Everything stopped. The key wasn't the final clue. It was only one piece of a larger puzzle. Sarah had hidden the answer somewhere else. Somewhere only she understood. Then Rebecca spoke. Very quietly. There was another message. Everyone turned toward her. What? Rebecca swallowed hard. Then reached into her jacket. And removed a folded piece of paper. Nathan's eyes widened. Why didn't you tell us? I was scared. The paper looked ancient. Worn. Weathered. As though it had been folded and unfolded hundreds of times. Rebecca handed it to me. My hands trembled as I opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Sarah. At the top of the page were 7 words. The truth lies below the light. The room fell silent. I read it again. And again. And again. Then realization hit me. The lighthouse. The light. Below the light. I slowly looked upward. Toward the lantern room. Toward the giant beacon that once guided ships. Nathan followed my gaze. Then suddenly understood. The lighthouse mechanism. Hale nodded immediately. There's a compartment. Without another word, we raced back upstairs. The gunfire had stopped. Which somehow felt worse. Much worse. Because silence meant planning. Silence meant preparation. Silence meant the attackers were waiting. We reached the top floor. The shattered windows allowed moonlight to flood the room. Nathan moved directly toward the old lighthouse beacon. The massive machinery had rusted with age. But beneath it, hidden behind a metal panel, was a keyhole. My pulse exploded. The key. Nathan inserted it. The metal clicked. Once. Twice. Then, clunk. A hidden compartment opened. For several seconds nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Nobody spoke. Then Nathan reached inside and pulled out a black leather journal. The ledger. The real ledger. 3 years. 3 years of death. 3 years of lies. 3 years of fear. And finally, the ledger. Hale stared at it, almost in disbelief. Rebecca began crying. And I simply stood there, thinking about Sarah, thinking about everything she'd sacrificed to keep this hidden. Then Nathan opened the ledger. His expression instantly changed. Not relief. Not victory. Shock. Pure shock. The color drained from his face. My stomach dropped. What? Nathan didn't answer. What is it? Slowly, he turned the ledger toward us. I looked down and immediately understood why he looked horrified. Because the first page wasn't a list of victims, or transactions, or locations. It was a list of names. Powerful names. Judges. Business executives. Police officials. Politicians. People everyone trusted. People everyone respected. People nobody would ever suspect. And written beside several of the names was one word. Active. The room went silent. Because suddenly we understood. The network wasn't gone. It wasn't broken. It wasn't hiding. It was still operating. Right now. Then Hale whispered something that chilled me to the bone. Something I will never forget. Something that changed everything. He looked at the ledger. Then at Nathan. Then at me. And quietly said, Sarah wasn't hiding from them. My pulse quickened. Hale swallowed hard. Then finished the sentence. She was hiding from someone in this book. And at that exact moment, a voice echoed from the lighthouse entrance below. Calm. Confident. Terrifying. A voice none of us recognized. And yet every one of us feared. The voice called out, Hand me the ledger. A pause. Then, and maybe I'll let one of you leave alive. For several seconds, nobody moved. The voice echoed upward through the lighthouse. Calm. Confident. Patient. The voice of a man who knew he had already won. My pulse hammered in my ears. Nathan immediately closed the ledger. Hale moved toward the staircase. Listening. Waiting. Calculating. Then the voice spoke again. You've already read enough. The room fell silent. Rebecca looked terrified. Nathan looked angry. Hale looked worried. But me? I felt something else. Recognition. Not recognition of the voice. Recognition of the confidence. Because whoever was downstairs wasn't acting like a criminal. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't threatening. He wasn't panicking. He was negotiating. Like a businessman. Like a politician. Like someone used to being obeyed. Nathan slowly crouched beside the lantern room window, carefully peering downward. Then his face lost color. Instantly. What? He didn't answer. What is it? Nathan slowly looked at Hale. Then quietly said, It's him. The detective froze. Completely froze. My stomach tightened. Who? Neither man answered immediately. And that terrified me more than any gun. Finally Hale whispered. Arthur Voss. The name meant nothing to me. Nothing at all. But Rebecca's reaction said everything. The moment she heard it, she began shaking. Actually shaking. As though she'd seen a ghost. I looked at her. Who is Arthur Voss? Rebecca swallowed hard. Then whispered. The reason Sarah disappeared. Silence. Total silence. My pulse exploded. What? Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. Arthur Voss wasn't in the network. Nobody spoke. He built it. The room suddenly felt smaller. Colder. More dangerous. Then Nathan finally spoke. 20 years. His voice was bitter. Angry. 20 years we've been trying to prove it. I stared at him. 20 years. Nathan nodded. Women disappeared. Pause. Witnesses vanished. Pause. Cases collapsed. Another pause. And every investigation somehow led back to him. The implications hit me instantly. Arthur Voss wasn't just involved. He was the center. The spider in the web. The man behind everything. Then a flashlight beam swept across the staircase below. Nathan immediately pulled away from the window. They're coming up. The attackers had entered the tower. My heart nearly stopped. Footsteps echoed below. Slow. Steady. Unhurried. The footsteps of people who believed victory was inevitable. Then, a familiar voice. One I never expected to hear again. Ava. The world stopped. My blood ran cold. Because I knew that voice. I knew it. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Yet I knew it. The voice came again. Ava. I stumbled backward. No. Nathan immediately looked at me. What? I couldn't breathe. The voice echoed once more. And this time there was no doubt. Not even a little. It belonged to my father. The room spun. My father. The same father I'd buried years ago. The same father I'd mourned. The same father who was supposed to be dead. No. My voice cracked. No. Rebecca looked confused. Nathan looked confused. Even Hale looked stunned. Then the voice laughed. A cold laugh. A cruel laugh. And suddenly I understood. It wasn't my father. It was a recording. A recording. My knees nearly gave out. Someone had used his voice. Someone knew enough about me to use it. To manipulate me. To distract me. To weaken me. Nathan's jaw tightened. Psychological warfare. The words sounded terrifying. Because they were true. Whoever Arthur Voss was. He knew exactly how to break people. Then another voice echoed upward. This one real. This one unmistakable. This one belonging to the man himself. Ladies and gentlemen. The footsteps stopped. Just below the final staircase. Just out of sight. Arthur Voss. Close. Very close. The voice continued. You have something that belongs to me. Nathan's grip tightened around the ledger. Arthur laughed softly. I've spent 3 years searching for that book. 3 years. The exact amount of time since Sarah vanished. The exact amount of time Ava's life had fallen apart. Then Arthur said something unexpected. Something that froze everyone. Including Nathan. Including Hale. Including Rebecca. Including me. Sarah was always the clever one. Silence. My pulse exploded. Because Arthur wasn't speaking about Sarah like a victim. He was speaking about her like an opponent. Like a rival. Like someone who had beaten him. Then he continued. I underestimated her. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. Arthur sighed. A genuine sigh. Almost impressed. Then he said. She outplayed us all. The room froze. My heart pounded. Us. Not me. Us. Meaning Arthur wasn't alone. Meaning there were others. Powerful others. Then Arthur's tone changed. The amusement disappeared. The patience disappeared. The friendliness disappeared. And, for the first time, his true nature emerged. Cold. Dangerous. Merciless. Give me the ledger. Nathan didn't move. Arthur continued. Or, I'll tell Ava the truth. The room froze. Nathan's face changed instantly. Hale's too. Rebecca looked horrified. And suddenly I realized something. Everyone knew something. Something I didn't. My pulse quickened. What truth? Nobody answered. I looked at Nathan. What truth? He looked away. That terrified me. Because Nathan never looked away. Not once. Not ever. Then Arthur Voss delivered the sentence that shattered everything. The sentence that made the entire story feel different. The sentence that changed Sarah Harper forever. Arthur laughed softly. Then said, Ask Nathan what really happened the night Sarah disappeared. The lighthouse fell silent. Nathan looked like he'd been punched. Hale closed his eyes. Rebecca began crying. And my stomach dropped. Because suddenly I understood. Nathan hadn't told me everything. Not even close. And whatever happened that night might be the real reason Sarah vanished. The lighthouse fell silent. Not a single person moved. Not a single person spoke. My eyes locked onto Nathan. His face had gone pale. Not scared. Not surprised. Guilty. My stomach dropped. Because guilt was the one thing I'd never seen on Nathan's face before. For months I'd believed he was a stalker. For weeks I'd believed he was hiding things. But guilt? That was new. Terrifyingly new. Slowly, I turned toward him. What is he talking about? Nathan didn't answer. My pulse quickened. Nathan. Nothing. The silence was unbearable. Then Hale spoke. Quietly. Almost reluctantly. Nathan. The detective's voice carried a warning. A plea. A request. Tell her. Nathan closed his eyes. For several seconds, nobody breathed. Then he finally spoke. The night Sarah disappeared. His voice cracked. Just slightly. But I heard it. I was supposed to meet her. The room froze. My heart stopped. What? Nathan stared at the floor. Unable to look at me. Sarah called me. Everything felt distant. Unreal. Why? Nathan swallowed. Then answered. Because she'd found the ledger. The words echoed through the lighthouse. 3 years. 3 years of searching. And now the pieces were finally coming together. Nathan continued. She told me she had evidence. Pause. Evidence big enough to destroy the network. Another pause. And she wanted protection. My stomach tightened. Protection. Sarah knew she was in danger. She knew. Then Nathan looked directly at me. For the first time since Arthur mentioned the truth. And the pain in his eyes shocked me. Because it was real. Very real. She trusted me. The words hung heavily in the air. Then Arthur's voice drifted upward from below. Tell her the rest. Nathan's jaw tightened. Hale cursed under his breath. Rebecca looked away. Nobody wanted this conversation. Nobody. Then Nathan finally said it. I was late. Silence. The ocean crashed below. The wind howled outside. But inside the lighthouse, everything stopped. What? Nathan nodded slowly. Painfully. I was late. My pulse exploded. How late? Nathan looked broken. 27 minutes. 27 minutes. Such a small number. Yet somehow it felt enormous. Nathan continued. When I got there, his voice weakened. The motel room was destroyed. The room remained silent. The ledger was gone. Pause. Sarah was gone. Another pause. And so were they. My throat tightened. The image formed instantly. Sarah waiting. Checking the clock. Looking out the window. Expecting help. Expecting Nathan. Expecting rescue. And rescue never came. Because Nathan was 27 minutes late. Then Arthur laughed from below. A cruel laugh. You should tell her what you found. Nathan closed his eyes. As though he already knew where this was going. Then he whispered. Blood. My stomach dropped. A lot of blood. The detective looked away. And suddenly I understood why Nathan carried so much guilt. Why he'd spent 3 years searching. Why he'd followed me. Why he'd protected me. Why he'd never stopped looking. Because he believed Sarah died waiting for him. Then Nathan spoke again. That's why I thought she was dead. The room fell silent. For the first time. His actions made complete sense. Every one of them. He wasn't stalking me. He was trying to make up for a mistake. A mistake that haunted him. A mistake that never stopped haunting him. Then Arthur called upward again. You're still leaving out the important part. Nathan's face darkened. Hale immediately stepped forward. Don't. Arthur laughed. Why? The voice echoed through the staircase. She deserves the truth. My pulse quickened. There was more. Of course there was more. There was always more. I looked directly at Nathan. What else happened? Nathan didn't answer. The silence lasted so long that it became an answer by itself. Then Rebecca whispered. Oh God. The fear in her voice terrified me. I turned toward her. What? Rebecca looked at Nathan. Then looked away. Unable to meet my eyes. And that's when I knew. Whatever came next was worse. Much worse. Then Nathan finally spoke. Barely above a whisper. Sarah and I. He stopped. Swallowed. Started again. Sarah and I were working together for months. I frowned. So? Nathan looked devastated. Then he finished the sentence. Not just as investigators. The world stopped. My pulse exploded. The implication hit instantly. Not just investigators. Not just colleagues. Not just partners. Something more. Something personal. Something deeper. Then Arthur delivered the final blow. The sentence he had been waiting all night to say. The sentence that made my heart stop. The sentence that left the entire lighthouse frozen. Arthur's voice drifted upward through the darkness. Calm. Cold. Certain. And then he said, Nathan was in love with your sister. Silence. Absolute silence. Nobody denied it. Not Hale. Not Rebecca. Not Nathan. Nobody. Which meant only one thing. It was true. And suddenly, the guilt on Nathan's face finally made sense. Because this wasn't just a failed operation. This wasn't just a missed meeting. This wasn't just a dead informant. The woman he'd failed to save was the woman he loved. And somewhere below us, Arthur Voss was smiling. Because he had just shattered the fragile trust holding our group together. Nobody spoke. The silence inside the lighthouse felt unbearable. Nathan stood motionless, his eyes fixed on the floor, as though he already knew exactly what I was thinking, exactly what I was feeling. Betrayal, confusion, anger. My pulse hammered in my ears. For months I'd been terrified of him. Then I'd trusted him. Now I didn't know what to think. Finally, I broke the silence. You loved her. Nathan slowly nodded. The movement was barely visible, but it was enough. Enough to make my stomach twist. I looked away, trying to process everything, trying to understand, trying not to imagine my sister's final moments. Then Arthur's voice drifted upward again. Mocking. Amused. You still haven't told her everything. Nathan's jaw tightened. Shut up. Arthur laughed. The sound echoed through the tower. Cold. Cruel. Patient. Like a cat playing with a mouse. Then he spoke again. Tell Ava why Sarah never called her. The room froze. My heart stopped. Because Arthur had touched something I'd thought about every single day for 3 years. The question that haunted me. The question that destroyed my sleep. The question I never found an answer to. Why didn't Sarah contact me? Even once. Not a text. Not a voicemail. Not a letter. Nothing. Nathan looked physically sick. Hale cursed quietly. My stomach dropped. They knew. All of them knew. At least part of it. What does he mean? Nobody answered. I stepped toward Nathan. What does he mean? Nathan finally looked at me. The sadness in his eyes terrified me. Because it wasn't the sadness of a liar. It was the sadness of someone carrying a burden too heavy to keep holding. Then he whispered. Because she thought you'd be safer if you hated her. The words hit me like a truck. What? Nathan swallowed hard. Sarah knew they were watching everyone around her. The room fell silent. Friends. Pause. Family. Pause. Anyone she cared about. I stared at him. Unable to speak. Unable to breathe. Nathan continued. She thought if she disappeared completely. Another pause. They would stop looking at you. Tears filled my eyes. Because that sounded exactly like Sarah. Exactly. The kind of terrible sacrifice she'd make. The kind of decision she'd convince herself was necessary. The kind of decision that would destroy her. Then Rebecca stepped forward. Slowly. Carefully. Ava. I looked at her. Rebecca reached into her jacket. Again. Everyone froze. Nathan immediately tensed. But instead of a weapon, she pulled out an envelope. Old. Yellowed. Weathered. The edges worn from age. My stomach tightened. The handwriting on the front was instantly recognizable. Sarah's. My hands started shaking. No. Rebecca nodded. She wrote it. The world stopped. What? 3 years ago. The envelope felt heavy. Much heavier than paper should. My fingers trembled as I took it. Across the front were 3 words. For Ava only. I couldn't breathe. Nathan looked away. Hale looked away. Even Rebecca couldn't watch. Slowly. Carefully. I opened the envelope. Inside was a letter. Several pages long. Written entirely in Sarah's handwriting. My vision blurred immediately. Tears filled my eyes. For a moment I couldn't read. Then finally, I saw the first line. Ava, if you're reading this, then something has gone terribly wrong. The lighthouse vanished. The gunman vanished. Arthur vanished. Everything vanished. Only Sarah remained. Sarah's words. Sarah's voice. Sarah. I kept reading. I know you're angry. I know you're hurt. And I know you'll never forgive me for leaving. But if you're reading this, then I need you to know something. None of this was your fault. My throat tightened. I couldn't continue. Not yet. Not without breaking apart. Then suddenly, bang, a gunshot echoed from below. Everyone jumped. Reality crashed back. The attackers were still here. Arthur was still here. The danger was still here. Nathan immediately moved toward the staircase. Then another gunshot. And another. And another. But these sounded different. Not aimed at us. Not aimed upward. The attackers were shooting at something else. Someone else. The gunfire intensified. Shouting erupted outside. Chaos exploded below. Arthur's voice vanished completely. The entire lighthouse seemed to shake. Nathan frowned. What the hell? Hale moved toward a shattered window, carefully looking down. Then his eyes widened. Completely. What? The detective turned toward us, looking more shocked than I'd ever seen him. Then he whispered 4 words. 4 impossible words. Words that made every hair on my body stand up. Words that froze Nathan. Words that made Rebecca start crying instantly. Words that changed everything. Hale looked directly at us, then said, "Someone is attacking Arthur's men." Silence. Absolute silence. My pulse exploded, because there was only one person crazy enough, brave enough, prepared enough, to start a war against Arthur Voss. And deep down, before anyone said it, before anyone confirmed it, before any evidence appeared, I already knew who everyone was thinking about. Sarah. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody breathed. The lighthouse had become a battlefield. Gunfire echoed from below. Shouting erupted in every direction. Arthur's men were no longer advancing. They were retreating. Actually retreating. Nathan immediately rushed to the broken window, carefully peering downward. "What do you see?" For several seconds he didn't answer. Then slowly, he smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from him. Ever. My stomach tightened. "What?" Nathan laughed. Actually laughed. A short, disbelieving laugh. Then he looked at Hale. "You won't believe this." The detective moved beside him, looked down, and froze. Completely froze. For a moment I thought he'd seen a ghost. Then he whispered, "No way." Rebecca was still too stunned to move. My pulse exploded. "What is it?" Nobody answered. I pushed forward, ignoring their protests, ignoring their warnings, and looked. The road below the lighthouse was chaos. Vehicles blocked each other. Men ran in every direction. Some were abandoning their positions. Some were trying to regroup. Some were firing into the darkness. But what caught my attention wasn't the chaos. It was the symbol, painted on several vehicles. A black symbol. Simple. Familiar. Terrifyingly familiar. The same symbol carved into Sarah's key. My heart stopped. "No." Nathan slowly nodded. The symbol was everywhere. Doors. Windshields. Equipment. Everywhere. The symbol Sarah had been drawing. The symbol from the key. The symbol from her notebooks. The symbol we'd thought was a map. My pulse hammered. "What does it mean?" Nobody answered immediately. Then Rebecca whispered, "It was never a map." I looked at her. "What?" Rebecca straightened herself, then said, "It was a promise." The room fell silent. "A promise." Rebecca nodded, then looked directly at me, and spoke the words Sarah had apparently repeated for years. "If they ever come for us, we come for each other." The lighthouse froze, because suddenly the symbol wasn't a clue. It wasn't a code. It wasn't a direction. It was a signal. A signal Sarah had created. A signal used by survivors. Women who escaped. Women who survived. Women who refused to disappear. My pulse exploded. Then realization hit me. Hard. Fast. Unavoidable. The women weren't dead. Not all of them. Some had escaped. Some had survived. Some had been hiding. And now, they were fighting back. Then Nathan spoke. Quietly. Almost proudly. "Sarah built an army." The words echoed through the lighthouse. An army. Not soldiers. Not mercenaries. Survivors. Women Arthur Voss thought he'd destroyed. Women he thought he'd silenced. Women he thought he'd buried. And now they were here. Every one of them. Then a loudspeaker echoed from outside. A woman's voice. Strong. Confident. Unafraid. The entire battlefield went silent. Even Arthur's men paused. The voice spoke. Arthur Voss. Silence. You've been hiding for 20 years. The voice continued. Calm. Controlled. Terrifying. Tonight, we're done hiding. A chill raced through me. Because I knew that voice. Not from memory. Not from childhood. Not directly. But from somewhere. Something about it felt familiar. Painfully familiar. Nathan closed his eyes. Hale smiled. Actually smiled. And suddenly, I knew. Before anyone said it. Before anyone confirmed it. I knew. The loudspeaker crackled again. Then the woman spoke 6 words. 6 words that shattered everything. Ava, I'm sorry it took so long. My knees nearly gave out. The world stopped. The ocean stopped. The lighthouse stopped. Everything stopped. Because I knew that voice. I knew it better than my own. Sarah. Sarah Harper. My sister. Alive. Not a lookalike. Not a rumor. Not a clue. Not a memory. Alive. Then chaos erupted below. Arthur's men began shouting. Vehicles started moving. People started running. The entire operation was collapsing. Nathan immediately grabbed the ledger. We have to move. I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Couldn't breathe. Sarah. Sarah was alive. Actually alive. Then another voice echoed from the loudspeaker. A man's voice. Arthur Voss. Angrier than before. More frightened than before. And for the first time all night, he sounded beaten. Completely beaten. Then Arthur shouted. Find her. The order echoed across the cliffs. But nobody moved. Because Arthur's men were no longer listening. They were surrendering. Running. Escaping. Abandoning him. The empire he'd built was collapsing right in front of him. Then Nathan looked at me. Ava. I barely heard him. Ava. My eyes filled with tears. What? Nathan pointed toward the road below. Toward the chaos. Toward the flashing lights. Toward the survivors. Then he said, Your sister didn't hide for 3 years. My pulse quickened. Nathan smiled. The saddest smile I'd ever seen. Then he finished the sentence. She spent 3 years building this. For several seconds, I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Couldn't think. Sarah. Alive. The word didn't feel real. Nothing felt real. Nathan placed a hand on my shoulder. Ava. I barely heard him. My eyes remained fixed on the road below. Searching. Hoping. Praying. Then I saw her. Stepping out from the darkness. The crowd parted around her. The survivors. The women she'd protected. The women she'd saved. They moved aside. Making room. For her. Sarah Harper. My sister. For 3 years I'd imagined this moment. Thousands of times. In thousands of different ways. But nothing prepared me for reality. Nothing. Tears blurred my vision. The staircase became a blur. I don't even remember running. I just remember moving. Down the stairs. Past Arthur's abandoned men. Past the vehicles. Past everything. Until finally, I stopped. 10 feet away. Sarah stood there. Looking at me. Crying. Smiling. Shaking. Just like I was. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Because there were no words. No words big enough. No words strong enough. No words capable of carrying 3 years of pain. Then Sarah whispered. Ava. And that was all it took. I ran to her. And this time, when I hugged her, she hugged me back. Tightly. Like she never wanted to let go. And honestly, neither did I. Hours later, Arthur Voss sat handcuffed in the back of a police vehicle. The ledger had destroyed him. Every name. Every transaction. Every victim. Every crime. It was all there. The network was finished. The survivors had won. And for the first time in years, the nightmare was ending. It was a beginning of something new. New and free. The sun was beginning to rise when Sarah and I sat together overlooking the ocean. Just the two of us. Like when we were kids. For a while neither of us spoke. Then I finally asked the question that had haunted me for 3 years. Why didn't you come home? Sarah stared at the horizon. The answer took a long time. Then she quietly said, Because I was afraid. I looked at her. She smiled sadly. Not afraid for me. She pointed toward me. Afraid for you. Tears filled my eyes. Again. Sarah laughed softly. Looks like we're both crying now. I laughed too. Through tears. Through pain. through relief. Then she reached into her pocket and handed me something. A photograph. Old. Faded. The same family photo from years ago. Me, Sarah, Mom, Dad, together. Happy. On the back she'd written a new message. Not a clue. Not a warning. Not a code. Just 6 simple words. We finally found our way home. 6 months later. The trials dominated national headlines. Arthur Voss spent the rest of his life behind bars. The network never recovered. Many of the survivors started new lives. Some opened support centers. Some became advocates. Some disappeared into peaceful anonymity. And Sarah? Sarah finally stopped running. For the first time in years. She was free. As for Nathan, well, he never stopped looking at Sarah the same way. And Sarah never pretended not to notice. Some things never change. And me? My name is Ava Harper. 3 years ago I lost my sister. Or at least I thought I did. What I actually lost was hope. And what I found was something much stronger. The truth. Because sometimes the people we love don't disappear. Sometimes they're fighting battles we can't see. And sometimes, just sometimes, they find their way back. I want to hear from you. Type down to the comments and tell me, as you followed this story, where did your sympathy sit? Was there a moment when it shifted? Was there a moment when you understood Maya, even as you judged her? Because I think if we are honest, some of us have felt some version of what she felt. The difference between her story and ours is often just the choices that were made when the feeling arrived. Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and conversations like this are why we are here. And if this story reached something in you, if it made you think about someone in your life, or something in yourself, please share it and don't forget to subscribe. Someone in your circle needs to hear it. We will see you in the next one.